What was
enterprise.
great in Texas, tell me if I got the story wrong, but I love this in Texas, that it went to a vote on the House floor. They did a voice vote, and it failed. The politicians voted, no, we don't want to make our check register searchable and online for everyone to see. Somebody called for a roll call vote, and it passed unanimously. So in other words, when put on the carpet, do you want transparency? Even those people who voted against it go, oh, of course, this is public information, we should make it more accessible.
Right, nobody wants to be against transparency, and when you make the voting process transparent, everybody is going to prove that they're for transparency, and that's a good example of how the whole making financial records transparent is also ultimately beneficial to the people who are paying the bills, the taxpayers.
Now, you wanted this information. You had to go and pay for it. Mm-hmm. All right. Now, one of the complaints we hear about putting these things online, well, that's just going to cost a whole lot of money. You know, it might be nice for a school district to make this stuff available online, but we're in tight financial times here. We can't afford transparency. Now, what did you pay Lakewood City Council or Jefferson County Schools? How much did you have to reach into your personal pocket to get public information to make it public?
Well, school district was $75. We've spent hundreds of dollars for the city of Lakewood. So it turns out to be a substantial cost, and most of it is research fees. It's not copying a piece of paper. It's not putting it on a CD. It's the time that they've charged just to put this information together, which makes me wonder if they're even looking at it themselves. And
so you had to pay hundreds of dollars in Lakewood to get their check register. Again, the register that says, here's the check number, here's the date it was issued, here's the amount, here's who it's for, and here's the memo, and where it goes in the budget. Pretty simple information. What, do they have an old-fashioned handwriting? Is there some stenographer in the back writing a check to the Public Utility Commission for this much and rips out a check, or is it on a computer? I mean, I've got to assume most governments in Colorado have their check registers on a computer system.
Mm-hmm. Yes, most of them do agree when I submit the CORA request to them that they do have it in electronic format. Right. So they need to put the information together. They charge me to put that information together and put it on a CD. We've actually run into entities, though, who say that they don't have some of this information on a computer. I don't know if I should name names, but
yeah, go ahead.
RTD is one of the ones that has forced us to buy paper statements, claiming they don't have it on a computer.
RTD, one of the largest governments in the state, and
yes.
Actually this was news to me.
Yes.
You're telling me RTD's check register is not compiled on some sort of electronic database?
Actually, this would be with the credit card spending, which, again, needs to be, you need to watch that as closely as the check register. So we're still hashing that out, still waiting for some records. Colorado Open Records Act says that you have a certain amount of days to produce these records. With RTD, we are now months past that.
And this is something reporters understand this as well, and we understand this all too well at Independence. When we're trying to get a bit of public information, there's a shell game. And what surprises me is many governments go, oh, this is what you want? Yeah, here it is. And you get it like that. Some governments drag their feet, say it's going to cost more for research, we don't know where it is, and then when they get it to you, it's not really what you asked for. And it happens pretty much all the time. Am I right in this?
I've had my share of experience with school districts that works that way, yes.
What do they tell you?
Well, I mean, in some cases that what they'll do is they'll go ahead and make 500 copies and say, oh, if we just surveyed this whole range of records and you just wanted maybe this small amount, we had to copy this whole thing and here's the bill. In the old days, before I think there was a bill passed last year, they could charge up to I think $1 a page for copying. Now it's something more reasonable, but still, why all this extra cost?
And what it does is it stops people who want to be watchdogs from actually peering into government because there's a cost associated with it. If one of these 3,000 governments, you said Lakewood, cost you several $100s just to get public information to you, well, it's hard for people to be able to afford these things. All right. The big issue that I'm hearing is we, the government, any of these governments, we can't afford to put this stuff online because that's going to take man hours, it's going to take computing, it's going to take bandwidth, it's going to cost millions of dollars. Your website, which is nataliementen.com, you've taken some of this and you put it online. I'm assuming you're a very savvy computer operator, or how did you manage to do this, and what does it look like? I
have a great volunteer who does the programming, and it was a very minimal cost. He used a SQL database, which is almost a level of freeware, shareware type programming. We didn't even have to pay for that. Just the cost for the website is $10 a month for me. So the CORA requests have been the biggest chunk of our money. I believe we have some figures that a school district can probably enact online transparency with a searchable database for several $1,000s, and we've seen payoffs well beyond that investment. It is just something that there's no argument against it.
I want to get into this idea that here you are, just a citizen activist in Lakewood. You paid a few $100s for the data. Tell me about the website. Is this truly searchable? If I wanted to search something in, let's take Jefferson County Schools, for instance. If I wanted to search something, what could I search on your little database that's costing you $10 a month?
Well, you could find out that we buy flip-flops for our teachers. In a starved school district, apparently a priority was to buy flip-flops for a teacher. So if you go to our search engine and you put in the word flop, right away it'll come up with the $400 and some that we spent on flip-flops for teacher incentive. If you put in bowling, you'll find that we pay for teachers to go bowling as a team building activity. You could put in the word parties. You could put in the word Starbucks. You can say, I want to see all expenditures between $500 and $1,000. I want to see all expenditures by this principal or this administrator. We really have a great searchable database that you can pinpoint information through a variety of ways.
Now, government says that this is too costly to get done. You know, there's 3,000 governments in Colorado. You've done this for how many so far?
We have two databases up and running right now.
And it's costing you a volunteer. Is he working 40 hours a week, slaving away? You have him locked away in a dungeon, or is this something that came out pretty easily?
It came out, no, I don't have them locked in the dungeon at all, but time-wise I would say it takes them about 12 hours to set up a database. So it's really a little time for him that he spreads over a couple weeks, and we have a database up and running. Money out of pocket, hardly anything.
Other than buying what should be free data.
Yes.
Putting it on there. All right, so when I hear bureaucrats saying, during this kind of recession, we have to watch our money very carefully. This really doesn't cost anything, unless Natalie has done a poor job. You tell me. You've been on the website.
I think it's very good, and I don't think we should be surprised that this work is being done by entrepreneurs rather than bureaucrats. Natalie's, what she's done is a great example. There's also a group out of Wisconsin that's just a bunch of citizen activists, kind of like Natalie. They're very savvy, and they've developed their own software product where they can take the invoices that a government produces electronically and convert them into a searchable database they can put online. The guy tells me in less than an hour. And he says that the cost for them to sell the software and to host all this information online is a few $1,000s.
Now, we've been working at the Independence Institute with some folks on both left and right, because amazingly, this is not just those of us who are watchdogs fiscally. There are a lot of other folks. As you said, Obama has been a big fan of this. And believe it or not, folks like Ralph Nader have been very supportive of online transparency. Why? Does it just sound good?
Well, this isn't an issue of the left or the right. This is an issue of good, open government, a government that serves the interests of the people, and it promotes democracy. And when more people in the school district, for example, know how their money is being spent on the classroom or how much is being spent on Starbucks, for example, they can be better informed and make decisions and contribute to the debate about how their schools are run.
Ralph Nader, for instance, believes that we're not spending enough money, particularly on social services, and if we can make this clear by opening up these books for all to see, that people will be convinced of this. What excites me is I know that Colorado's got an auditor, department that does auditing. City of Denver has an auditor. But imagine if the whole state is open up and 4 million people can sit around and start looking at these things. But let me ask you the other side of this. Is this going to just annoy governments? Is this going to cause more trouble than it's worth? Or are people going to be calling up and saying, why are you buying flip-flops? And maybe there's a wonderful reason, and this is going to slow down the wheels of government because they're going to be dealing with a whole bunch of gadflies like you wanting to know why you're spending money on flip-flops and Starbucks.